Either.
Right.
He can't?
Yeah.
Emergency rule, so he can't,
Oh,
I mean, he
okay.
can't participate.
Oh, okay.
Whoa, our luck is growing.
Well, you know, what he does on his own time is his time.
I know. Some places there, we gotta give him a little grief.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep, our luck is growing. It's hard to imagine, when I first started here, there was like, the only thing electronic in this room was microphones. That was it.
Really?
Nothing else. No screens, no presentation equipment, nothing.
He's really evil.
Yeah, well, we had wireless microphones that board members never used. So,
Probably couldn't figure it out.
that's right. That's just, I think it's like having to put them on
Oh, I know one that probably wouldn't.
and,
Figured they're love enough.
I can't remember Dwayne J. ever putting his wireless mic on. That's right. That's right.
No, should we test it once a year?
Yeah, I think monthly, actually.
Yeah.
They can't speak.
Call order the Benton County Board of Commissioners meeting. Please join us for the pledge of the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beth, would you please do roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Schlangen.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Heinen.
Here.
Commissioner Gopinski.
Excused.
Commissioner Pop.
Here.
Thank you.
Approve or amend the agenda, Monty?
Sure, Mr. Chair, let me take things in order here. So under 940, County Administrator, under Administrator's Report, I have a couple of things there already, but I'd like to add an update for you on the Foley High School property across the street from us on the environmental and the rezoning, if I could add that. Second is, in light of the fact that Commissioner Kapinski cannot be with us today, I'd like to suggest that you remove the auditor treasurer residency item and reschedule it for your March 1st board meeting and bring that back on March 1st. And that is all I have.
Council?
Mr. Chair, I would recommend that we pull the auditor treasures, or I'll make a motion, we pull the auditor treasures before we approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you for that, Commissioner Pop.
Mr. Chair, I'll also move then to approve the agenda as presented with the changes.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second for the agenda. Any other questions, discussions on that? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. The county board meetings are broadcasted live and video recorded on YouTube. Please refrain from speaking from the audience area and come to the podium so that viewers can hear you. The county board observes Robert's Rules of Order for this meeting. So please obtain the board's chair's consent before addressing the county board. Public comments are generally reserved for the open forum segment or public hearings. However, public comment on other agenda items may be allowed at the discretion of the board chair. As we begin today, please turn your cell phones off or turn them on vibrate, please. Thank you. Open forum, is there anybody out there? Okay, moving on. Consent agenda item. What do we want to do with 1 through 15?
Mr. Chair, if I could move to pull item 10, please, for further discussion. And with that, I'd also then move to approve items 1 through 9 and 11 through 15.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason I was pulling item 10 is that we have with us today Eric Klein, the new owner of the Two Rivers Campground. And obviously his liquor license here is on our consent agenda, and I just thought it'd maybe be appropriate to pull that. Maybe have Mr. Klein come up and introduce himself and what it is he's gonna be doing up at Two Rivers. We're excited to have you and welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. And yes, as we just closed on the property back in December. So as we're new in town, I think it'd be nice to use this opportunity also to introduce ourselves so you know who we are, what we're doing, what we sort of see for the Two Rivers Campground in the future. So, and why we're seeking a liquor license. So first, me and my partners, we are from Texas, and last year we set out to look for irreplaceable, beautiful destination RV campgrounds. And we looked all over the country. We were in New York, we were in the Chesapeake Bay, and then finally we came to Two Rivers. And so we closed on the property, as I mentioned, 2 months ago. And we have set out to, I guess, in the 4 months we have before the season opens, we've set out to, I guess, achieve a series of improvements in addition to getting this liquor license. But I think, as I was mentioning to Steve before the meeting, to understand why we want this, you also have to understand what the Two Rivers Campground is. And I think that'll make more sense. The Two Rivers Campground is what in the industry is called a destination campground. So there are overnight parks that are on the side of the highway that are largely places to stay for the night on your way to your destination. And then the destination campground is the point of your trip. It is why you are going on a 3-4 night vacation with your family. And the characteristics of a destination campground are lots of amenities and activities for your family. So in the supplemental I provided before the meeting, and I think all the commissioners should have, you'll see some pictures about what is at the Two Rivers Campground. We have a swimming beach. We have almost a mile of river frontage. We have 2 pools. We have a pavilion activity center. We have volleyball courts, basketball courts. We have staff that are dedicated to providing activities and events for the people on the campground. And so the Two Rivers Campground is one of the finest campgrounds in the state of Minnesota because of all these amenities that the previous owners put in place. And our goal is to keep it one of the finest campgrounds in the state. So in addition to seeking this liquor license, some of the other things that we're doing before we open in May, we are adding a dog park. We are modernizing the Wi-Fi system for the upper level of the campground. We are upgrading the food service. Last week, we were approved by the Department of Health to go to a Category 2 food license to start preparing food for the guests. We replaced our vehicle fleet, new tractors, new golf carts, new work truck. We are adding a delivery service to the campground. So if you're sitting at the campground, you run out of firewood, we can bring firewood to you. You don't even have to get up. We are modernizing the website. We now take online reservations. We have hired award-winning management from KOA. We've modernized the logo. We are updating the signage of the property. We are implementing trash pickup. So again, we can pick up the trash from the campers' sites rather than asking them to go to the dumpsters. We've expanded our store offerings. We now have an RV parts section. We now supply dog supplies for your pets. We are adding a new amenity known as the Jump Pad. It's a 30 by 50 blow-up pad that is really all the rage at some of the best campgrounds, and so we're excited to add that amenity. We are upgrading our arcade, so our 2014 version of Buck Hunter will now be 2021. And lastly, we are seeking to add this liquor license. And so the point really is that when campers get there, they don't really have any reason to leave. So we think if you were at the pool watching your kids for 3 hours, it makes all the sense in the world to be able to have a local cider or a spiked lemonade while you were there. We are also asking for an off-sale license. So if, when you're done at the pool, you can also maybe buy some extra beverages to bring back to your campsite. And so that's really sort of the long and short of what we're doing here today. And welcome your questions or comments or suggestions.
Any questions for Mr. Klein?
No, this is the second time I've heard Mr. Klein speak. He was at the township deal, and I mean, I think we're excited that, they've taken what was a great campground and even gonna make it greater. And there's a lot of activity that happens not only at the campground, but in the cities of Rice and Royalton with all the campers. I don't know how many spots you have there, but it's a pile.
Yeah, we have just over 220 sites.
Yeah.
And I think in the cover letter that you should have a copy of, we have 3,300 adults, that's just adults, reserved already. Over half of our sites were reserved when we purchased the campground in December, 6 months in advance of when we open.
Yeah.
It's extremely popular. It's extremely difficult to get in. We've been meeting seasonals who come by the property just to meet us because, they sort of consider it, their home. It's a big part of their lives in the season. And when we tell them the things we're doing, particularly Wi-Fi, they're very excited about that. But also when we say, yes, you will be able to have a drink as well when you're at the pool, they're excited about that too. So again, it's one of the many incremental offerings we're excited about.
Great.
Great.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Eric. I appreciate you reaching out last week. It was nice to meet you, and again, welcome to Benton County.
Thank you.
With that, I'll move approval of item 10 on the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second for item number 10. Any further discussion? With that, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Good luck.
Thanks for coming, Eric.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing to consider ordinance number 483, amending Benton County Development Code Ordinance 477. Roxanne. Before opening a public hearing, we'll first hear from county staff report.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Okay, so before you, we have a number of amendments that have been discussed at the Planning Commission level to our development code. We have been having meetings on these amendments for some time now. The Planning Commission began these discussions back in July of 2021. Discussion occurred July, August, November, December 2021, and then January 2022. So you can see we've had quite a bit of discussion on the items that I'll be presenting to you. The public hearing was conducted on February 10th. And we had a representative from Sauk Rapids Township show up with questions. They were under the impression that the county was making changes to the ordinance that was adopted in their orderly annexation area. We clarified that, and once clarified, the township was okay and had no concerns about the amendments. Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval of the proposed ordinance amendments. So beginning with the first items, feedlots and pastures. While doing some research, I came across the definition of feedlots throughout several different counties. And the one thing that stuck out to me is that they had the last sentence here, pastures shall not be considered animal feedlots. And in discussions with the Planning Commission, we felt it was important to add that to our definition of feedlots because we have a significant setback from feedlots, 660 feet for a residential dwelling. And so to provide clarification that pastures are not considered feedlots, I think we may find that it reduces some of the variance requests, allows people to build closer than what we had originally anticipated. Through that, Michelle, in her review, felt that we should add a definition for a pasture. And so pasture is defined as areas where grass or other growing plants are used as food for animal grazing. So that is all that we had for feedlots and pastures. The other is temporary sales and transient merchants. And this comes about from last year's fireworks display just south of the city of Royalton. So we felt that they're not always bad, and we just need to come up with some regulations on how and where they should be placed. So with that, again, I did do quite a bit of research on other counties and how they're permitted, and I came up with two definitions for temporary sales and transient merchants. And then came up with performance standards. They would be a permitted use, so they would not necessarily need to come to us for a permit as long as they were following the guidelines. So that gives us a little bit of some pull when somebody sets up and does not follow our regulations. At least we can push them to follow our regulations if they want to be in place. Some of those include shall be located at an existing business site or within an existing parking lot, so we don't have them set in the middle of a field, as we had. Shall have adequate access to and from a maintained public roadway. Again, that was another issue that we had with the previous merchant. Limited to a total of 14 days per calendar year. Sales stands shall be located outside of the right-of-way so as not to impede the sightline of traffic. And hours of operation are limited to dawn to dusk and no overnight occupancy. As you can see, this was essentially everything that went wrong with the previous one, but I think it sets up and allows for temporary sales stands, whether it be a tent, a truck, vending cart, in parking lots, at businesses that are established, that we don't have them just willy-nilly throughout the county. They would not be allowed in our residential districts, but all other districts they would be permitted. I apologize, one of the things that I failed to mention is they're required to obtain a transient merchant peddler's license through the county auditor's office prior to conducting business, and that has been in place. We have that in place right now, and by statute, they're supposed to have that license. And so if they get that license, they can be referred to my office, and we can run through some of those other regulations with them.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, Roxanne, if I could ask you to ask the people who are online to mute their microphones, please, if they're not speaking.
Monty, you don't have that availability to do that?
I think I can.
Roxanne has the control there.
Okay, there we go.
Caller one is.
Caller one.
Caller one.
Thank you. Thanks, Roxanne. Go ahead.
Roxanne's.
Any questions on temporary sales or transient merchants?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Pop.
So I got a question on some of the where they can locate. What about like a sweet corn stand where somebody's teenage kid sets up a stand to sell
Sure.
sweet corn. We had one last year at 22 and Highway 25. So are we gonna regulate that?
No, so we have, I don't have it in front of me, but we do have vegetable and produce stands
Okay.
as a permitted use, and they're not, I wouldn't consider them within these definitions because we do call them out specifically.
Okay.
So they're permitted by right.
Good.
No, so I'll move on if there's no other questions. Auction business. I recently had a few calls on auction businesses. While taking a look at our development code, we didn't seem to have anything that fit specifically to an auction business. I feel like they're kind of a unique character in that they generally only have they're only open for business a certain number of days per year. They have events. There's a large amount of traffic that comes. There may be a lot of outdoor storage for a short amount of time and then it's gone. And so through many discussions with the Planning Commission, we decided not to limit it to any particular lot size. But we did provide a definition and then allowed for them to be located with an interim use permit in all of our districts except for our residential districts. And then the applicants would need to demonstrate adequate on-site parking and restroom facilities. Goods to be auctioned may be displayed in a secured area 2 weeks prior to and 2 weeks after the auction unless otherwise described in the interim use permit. There should be no auctioning of livestock. The applicant shall obtain written permission or an access permit where required from the responsible road authority at such proposed location. And that came from one request that was right off of Highway 23. And we had a little bit of concern about the amount of traffic coming and going through direct access of 23. And then signage shall comply with section 8.1 of our zoning ordinance. Any questions on that, or I'll move on? Okay. Mining operations. This one came from an interested party who has a mining operation, describing to us the difficulties with our permits. Right now, we allow for a 5-year permit, and then every 5 years, that mining operation needs to come back to us for what we would call a renewal, yet a bank sees it as well, you may or may not get that permit. And so through discussions with the Planning Commission and some great research on behalf of Stearns County, we discussed and came to the conclusion of a 20-year permit, which would allow for a review of each site, an administrative review by the planning and zoning staff every 5 years. If there's any concerns with the permit, we certainly can bring that to the Planning Commission if we cannot work it out before then. So this would allow for a 20-year permit. Assuming this is adopted, any permits issued after January 1, 2017 would be valid for 20 years. The way I came up with that date is that's approximately 5 years from the date of the adoption of this. So anybody in the past 5 years which has been reviewed is eligible for administrative review beginning this year and good for a 20-year permit. Questions on that? Okay. And then I believe this is the last of it, easements along the right-of-way. While going through the platting process, we came across an issue where a 10-foot drainage and utility easement along a right-of-way ended up cutting through a home. And so we need to have that discretion for the county engineer to allow for a lesser width on a case-by-case basis, because we're going to have those older structures that are built closer to the roads and do not meet some of those requirements. So we just want to add in, the county engineer may allow for a lesser width on a case-by-case basis in this situation. And then the last is a correction to formatting. When we were looking at some of the information for sugar daddies, it's up. We're looking at the definitions and noticed a formatting error, so we are just correcting the formatting error in that section. Any questions on any of that?
Okay, we will now open a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the county board on this agenda item? If so, please come to the podium, Give us your name and your address, please. Final call. Is there anyone wishing to address the county board? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Is there any emails, letters, or other communications to be read on the record?
There is not, as I mentioned, a board member from Sauk Rapids Township attended. I think we clarified that for him. All of the cities and township did receive notification of these changes. They always receive notification of any changes to our development code. And we have not heard anything from them.
Thank you. Has the department received any comments or concerns from any state agencies, cities, or townships on this agenda item?
No.
Sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
Is there any official action was required by an affected township?
No.
And was there any action? None. Okay. The county board will now have time for questions to staff discussion. And as a reminder to the audience, the public hearing portion is closed. And if there are any questions or comments from board members before we take action on this agenda item. Commissioner Johnson?
None.
You sit on the
I'm
planning
ready to
commission?
move. Yeah, as Roxanne said, the planning commission had unanimous
Yeah.
recommendation to bring this to the county board. We've discussed it, as she said, for 5-6 months and have gone through this thoroughly, I believe, so it was presented well.
Yeah, just make a note that I'd like to thank Planning Commission and Roxanne for kind of doing a little house cleaning on this. Makes it a little bit simpler, more straightforward.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve ordinance number 483 as presented.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second for ordinance 843. Any questions, concerns? With that, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne. Next, Auditor Treasurer Nadine, approve the Benton County credit card acceptance policy. Anybody here from Auditor Treasurer?
Mr. Chair, if I can elaborate a bit on this, Nadine and I have been trading some emails over the last couple of days on the draft policy. And I did have some suggested changes to it. And probably at this point, it might be best to table it for a future meeting. And I can continue those discussions with Nadine about the policy and then bring that back to you. As she notes in her agenda item, when we do accept credit cards, we should have a policy in place. So at some point, we should incorporate those policies into the county fiscal policies. I believe the starting point for these policies they came from Wright County, I believe. So I think probably at this point, it's best to table, if we could, for a future meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to table the credit card acceptance policy until a future date when the county administrator and auditor have had an opportunity to finalize it.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Table it for a future date. Next, Chris Berg, County Engineer, award of construction contract.
All right, that's me. All right, good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Allow me a moment to bring this up. All right. So we opened bids on Friday, January 28th for projects SAP 005-599-027 and -028. These projects are the bridge replacement projects of a township road that is shared by Mayhew Lake Township and Graham Township. We did receive 5 bids. I'll go to the 6 bids. I apologize. So a good turnout on these bids. Marvin Treader Incorporated out of Morrison County was the lowest responsible bidder. Their bid did come in 13% below our estimate. So We kind of based this on what we were seeing last year, thought the prices were going to be going up. But I think maybe because of the competition, everybody threw in really good bid prices. Everybody wants this work. So this is a concrete box culvert to replace the large metal culverts that are large enough to be considered bridges in Minnesota. Replace that. So I am recommending awarding a construction contract to Marvin Treader Incorporated. If the board agrees with that, I would seek adoption of the resolution to award a construction contract to them.
Chris, has the county ever done work with that company?
Yes, we have. They've been a subcontractor of ours. They were a subcontractor on the County Road 78 reconstruction project. Last fall, Marvin Treader Incorporated was actually awarded the contract to replace the Watab Township Road Bridge. They're still waiting for warm weather, so that work will occur this summer. But yeah, we have a history and experience with working with them.
Thank you.
Good equipment, been around a long time.
Yeah, Marvin is the father. It's actually run by the son, Corey Treader now. So it's been around for a long time.
Mr. Chair, I'll recommend that we award that contract to Marvin Treader Incorporated.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Next, Chris, fiber. That's what we've been looking for.
Woohoo.
Yeah. Okay, I need to stop sharing.
As Amanda's smiling in the audience.
So it was a desire, I think, of the board to go ahead and pre-purchase material, just the way prices are going with everything in the world right now, and even availability. Get something out there and kind of get a hold on the material while we work on designing the project to actually install the fiber. So we had a bid opening on February 2nd, 2022. We required everybody to submit sealed bids on or before that date, and we did receive 3 bids for the material. What we did is we had a base bid. We're really interested in purchasing 288 strand single mode armored fiber, but then we wanted to see some options for an additional 144 strand and an additional 72 strand, and then what would be the price to purchase conduit from these. So the 3 bids we received was from Gray Bar, Border States, and this Carish Industries out of California. The lowest price for the 288 strand was Gray Bar at a price of $219 per foot. This is how tight this stuff is. Border States was in the next lowest. They're only half a penny per foot difference in price. But if we look at the alternate bids, Border States was actually a little bit cheaper when you add in the other stuff. But I think well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the interest was at least secure the 288 strand fiber. So we have that available for us, and we just wanted to see options of what it would cost if we needed to add some of that stuff, maybe at a later date. But of the bids that were submitted, Gray Bar was the lowest price for material of the 288 strand single mode fiber. So of that quantity of 68,640 feet, it would be about $150,000 and change to kind of pre-purchase that material.
Commissioner Johnson, I'm gonna ask you the question. I know we talked about, only because Commissioner Kapinski's not here. I know we did an alternate bid, but do we have an idea?
You know, I would say we don't yet. We have those 3 options available to us now. To my knowledge, the Broadband Committee as a whole has not reviewed those, or the subcommittee of that Broadband Committee for this. And so my answer would be no, that we have not made that decision. And if I could, Mr. Chair, I do have a question, Chris or Monty, just for clarification. On the agenda item itself, source of funds local,
You know,
I guess my assumption was ARPA money?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's.
thanks for that clarification.
And with that, Monty, if we were to, if we were able to obtain some grant money, can those monies be refunded back to the ARPA? You know what I'm saying? Because there's been a
Sure.
push from the Broadband Committee that obviously we're gonna go after every grant dollar we can
Yeah,
without spending ARPA money.
I think yes, typically, you can't get a grant for something you've already bought.
Right.
That's
Okay.
generally how those work. So potentially, I suppose, but
Mr. Chair.
But, yeah, generally a grant would be for something we intend to get in the future.
Okay.
Commissioner
Chair.
Pop?
Could we use the grant dollars for the installation part of it?
I think so. Again, obviously, we'd have to apply. I'm not aware of
Yeah.
any particular grant we would go for.
I
at
don't,
this
I don't know
point.
what,
I think we're actually hoping for a couple of external sources of funds. MnDOT and MnIT have expressed interest in participating in this project. And I don't recall the exact dollar amounts that are possibly available at this point, but those are two external sources of funds which could help pay for this fiber installation.
okay.
Maybe Chris remembers them, but I don't know that MnDOT necessarily gave us a number per se of what they'd participate in.
Yeah, I do not know those numbers, but I think they're willing to participate, yeah, like Monty said, in the project that actually installs them, the construction project, if you will, which may lead to some of these additional fiber strands that could be purchased as part of the construction contract at that time too, so.
And I think, as Chris said, we wanted to make sure we had those ads available up front in case we pursued them. So,
The question I have, are we in the process of the grant process already?
No.
For-
At
okay,
this
so
point,
we're not.
we have not, we're not actively seeking any grants.
Okay.
And, I think that's down the line, as we've been discussing this with Finley Engineering and our Broadband Committee. We generally see the providers applying for grants as part of their financing package. So in other words, we say, okay, provider, we expect you to contribute so many dollars to this project, and if you go get a grant for that, that's great. The ARPA funds will make up a portion of the funding picture, but really the burden is upon the provider to go seek the grants. Let them do the application, let them pursue it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Pop.
So I see we have Gray Bar as the lowest responsible bidder on the 288 strands, and then the other one was Border States. I would definitely want that to be all one company. Would that make sense? I mean, it's not that many dollars in
No,
difference.
I would agree.
I just think we're better off with that scenario.
Oh, yeah, I think, the main reason we did this was to be in compliance with statute. Over $175,000, you need to take sealed bids. Yeah, I think maybe what we're looking for too is a commitment to go with one of them. And I think we're pretty confident that the 288 strand, and maybe that's another option, at a later date, we go with the other ones, so.
So we're not
my
gonna
knowledge is
approve
the
the
intent.
extra strands, or are we gonna approve if they need them?
No, I think at this point, the request is, as Chris said, to approve it, for instance, Gray Bar's proposal of 150,000 and some change for the 288.
And leave the
We
other,
have the ads available to us if we choose to move
But-
on that.
will that price be legit if we do it in 6 months?
Did I see a 60-day on that? Do you remember?
There might have been something like a 60-day.
Which I think is enough opportunity for the Broadband Committee
To decide?
and
Okay.
the subcommittee of that to decide.
Okay,
not the
as
full
long as they're
Broadband
able
Committee.
to decide at that.
I think so. I think I'm safe in saying that.
Because we know
I
what
think
prices
Commissioner
are going
Kapinski and I are
for
both aware that these numbers are not good forever.
Right,
And
okay.
so we need to have those discussions.
All right,
We're waiting a little bit, I think, to find out MnDOT's share in this process potentially.
okay. Then I'm okay with it.
All right, Mr. Chair, I will move to approve and establish accept the bid from Gray Bar for $150,321.60 for the 288 strand single mode armored fiber as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on that?
It's kind of exciting. It's our real big kickoff of this project.
It's been in conversation for a long time. Got to keep this moving. I just want to move it quicker than what it's going. Sorry. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chris, next. Engineer updates.
Yeah, all right. All right, I just wanted to provide an update of some meetings I went to. So at the end of the year, we try to submit applications to the APO and then our other transportation planning region, Region 7W. in MnDOT ATP 3 for federal funds for upcoming construction projects that are in our 5-year plan. These federal dollars would have been available in federal fiscal year 2026. And interestingly enough, this is not the new IIJA infrastructure plan that everybody's heard about. This is still FAST Act dollars. What a lot of people don't realize that the IIJA was a federal authorization bill. We are all still anxiously waiting for a federal budget bill to get passed to actually give us the money. So the federal government has authorized to spend the money, but actually hasn't given any additional money. So we're still scheduling things and applying for things off of old targets. Think of it as like your mom gave you permission to spend your allowance, but didn't actually give you your allowance. So the project that I had submitted for the St. Cloud APO is this CASA 3 project. It's identified in our 5-year plan. It's a full depth reclamation project, basically from Mayhew Lake Road. The project would actually extend all the way to Popple Creek, where it intersects with CASA 4. Although a portion of that is outside of the APO boundary. So only this stretch of road up to County Road 44 would be eligible for APO federal funds. So that's what we applied for. It's a 2-lane bituminous road with gravel shoulders. So we would like to do a full depth reclamation and pave the shoulders as part of that project. So just the costs within the St. Cloud APO is about $2.7 million. There's only $2.1 million available to the St. Cloud APO in 2026, and these are the projects that were submitted. There was 3 projects submitted, and maybe what I wanted to point out is the request was $5.3 million, so that's 2.5 times the dollar amount that was available. After reviewing the applications, APO staff and the TAC actually recommended only funding the Stearns County Bridge Replacement Project for the APOs. And that still needs to go to the APO board, which I don't think they were able to have a meeting because they didn't have a quorum available. So that's still a future upcoming meeting to approve that. So I just wanted to show that yeah, we're trying to get outside funding for our road construction projects, but obviously the ask is a lot more, or the needs, if you will, are a lot more than the funding that's available. There was a lot of discussion in our APO meeting is like, what could the additional funding be if a federal budget does get passed and we get some additional funds through the IIJA? And really, without knowing that, actually, there's a lot of things happening even at the state level on how much federal money gets split to the locals. We're thinking that maybe we could see an additional $300,000 a year of federal funding is all. So it's not a huge windfall to us locals. And I think that's just a reality that we just need to be prepared. We're not going to see a lot of additional projects get built with federal money. So that meeting was on February 3rd. Unsuccessful there. I then had a meeting on February 9th. So outside of the APO area, which kind of just encompasses our urbanized area of the county, the rest of the county is covered by Planning Region 7W, which is another source of federal funds for us. And so I submitted the reconstruction project of CASA 2, basically from Trunk Highway 10. We would make this all one project all the way to where it intersects with Trunk Highway 25, although we do have a small half-mile section that's already been reconstructed at the lake. We had to move quickly on that a few years ago when they were doing the drawdown. We wanted to reconstruct that roadway when the lake was down and the ground was dry, as opposed to constructing through a lake. But yeah, so that was identified in our plan. Interestingly enough, it was in our plan before as a 2025 project, and I had applied for this same grant or federal grant opportunity last year and was unsuccessful in 25. So I noted that in my application that although our adopted plan identifies that as a 2025 project, we would most likely need to push that to 2026, dependent upon these federal monies, because we don't have enough local money to cover that project cost. Because that is an option. If you have enough local cost, you could front that and then get repaid by your federal money if you're awarded at a later date. So these projects that were submitted, there were several more projects, because I just want to point out that we're competing against the rural parts of Stearns County, the rural parts of Sherburne County, the rural parts of Wright County, also the cities of Buffalo, St. Michael, Albertville, Elk River. Those cities compete for the same amount of funds. So the total project cost is, $4.5 million. I requested $2 million, knowing that we would only about $3.4 million was available. So it's kind of a strategic thing. I don't want to ask for the whole pot because that was very unlikely. But I wanted to show this. There was almost $15.5 million requested. That's 4.5 times the amount of money that was available. There's kind of a complicated ranking system. They rank these projects based on all kinds of things like access mobility, system connectivity, multimodal. Are we building any off-system trails? Are we doing upgrades to sidewalk and ADA accommodations? Which in the rural area, we just don't have those facilities. What's the condition of the current roadway today? Safety, how does it promote economic vitality? And then equity, when was the last time your agency received funding? And we did receive funding that'll be available in 2024 from this group for our CASA 7 reconstruction project. So we didn't score the highest in equity. But as it shook out, I think we were ranked, number 3 in this group, meaning we're probably not going to get funding because I can't get the scroller to come over. The number 1 and 2 projects are going to consume all that $3.4 million when that goes to that planning board. So just wanted to get an update. I know it's kind of a sad news, bad news, but maybe it's just to temper expectations that with a lot of talk of the federal bill being a big bill, $1.2 trillion, by the time it shakes down to us locals, it's not a huge windfall of additional money. So I just wanted to provide an update on that since those were a couple meetings that I did attend recently. So that's all I have for an update, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Chris?
Mine will wait till the ditch
Other than the
authority.
bad news? Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Next, I'll turn this over to the Human Services Board Chair, Commissioner Johnson.
All right, we'll call to order our Human Services Board. Is there any additions or changes to our agenda, Bob?
No.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to approve our agenda is presented. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. We have, excuse me, one consent agenda item. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second on the consent agenda. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Bob, approve the resolution to accept 2021 donation funds. That's what it is. Anything
Yes.
else?
$500 that I would like you to accept,
Yep,
so we
which
can,
we've done. All right. Thank you very much. Anything else with Human Services? Bob, I see Sandy's here. Any updates, things you want to talk to us about?
I think we have some COVID updates, but that's in the next
Some of
section,
Jacqueline?
so.
Okay, perfect.
Unless I can field any questions you may have.
Members, any questions for Bob or Sandy?
No.
All right, we're going to adjourn our Human Services Board. I'll turn it back over to the board chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Monty, Administrator's Report.
All right, I think the first thing is the monthly financial report. Ordinarily, this is on your consent agenda, but I thought it's a nice occasion to put it on the regular agenda for some review, discussion, questions, and so on. This is the report as the end of December. So if I may, I'd just like to highlight a few things if I could. Let's go, if we could, to page 3. Let's see here. Page 3. And maybe what I can do is actually have it up here so we see what page I'm on. If I can convince this to switch over. Give me just a second. Sometimes you gotta shut it off and then turn it back on.
I do that all the time with my laptop.
Give it just a second. There we go. It's switching. Yeah. There we go. Let's see here. Light. Zoom. Okay. Alrighty. So. Alright. Gonna backtrack a little bit here to the bottom line of the general revenue fund. And lower right-hand side of this page, you can see the total spending for the year was 17,809,000. And that does appear to be a little bit over budget. Primary reason for that was way back in January, we got the state business assistance grant funding, about 800,000, and that really wasn't budgeted per se. And then that was administered by BEP on our behalf to make those business assistance grants. So that's a primary reason that it appears like the general revenue fund budget was over. It's good to see we did actually end up with an excess of revenues over expenditures of 260,000. So a modest increase in the general fund balance. I should note that these reports are cash basis, and we don't have the audited financial statements for 2021 yet, but there will be some improvement then in our fund balance for the general revenue fund. Let me then jump to the next page, and I'll put my pen right there. This is the excess of revenues of over expenditures for the Human Services Fund, the 1,067,000, and obviously a fairly substantial improvement in the fund balance for the Human Services Fund. One of the thoughts I had for you, and that is, you may recall that the 2022 budget assumes using about $600,000 to $700,000 of ARPA funds to replace lost revenue. That actually may become unnecessary, and instead you could rely more upon fund balance and then preserve those ARPA funds for broadband and other purposes. So just something to think about, and I think as time goes by, we can certainly have more discussion about that, but this does open the opportunity that you wouldn't necessarily need to use those ARP funds as planned. So just something to think about. I think that's it on. So any questions on those first few pages of the report? Anything in there that kind of jumped out at you? I try and footnote a few things that are a little unusual. Moving on, page 5 is this. This is the summary of all these restricted funds that we account for separately. And there's lots of history behind all these. Generally speaking, we account for them here because either they're statutorily restricted or the county board in the past has said, okay, we're going to restrict these and reserve them and set them aside for a specific purpose. I would say that the majority of them are here because they're statutorily restricted, but there are a few of them that are restricted at the discretion of the board. A few things to point out, you can see certainly one of the biggest balances is the solid waste fund. There's 2.7 million in the solid waste fund. You can see there was a really big expenditure out of solid waste fund. Of course, that was the purchase of the Eisenschenk gravel pit. 1.2 million roughly, something like that, was that purchase. So a very large drawdown in 2021 for the purchase of the Eisenschenk pit. At some point, I'll bring to the board a resolution which will formalize the repayment of that loan to the solid waste fund. So that's coming at some point. Let's see here. A couple other more significant areas where you see a big fund balance, for example, is the 911 emergency. These are resources. It's a special assessment on your phone bill, and those resources can only be spent within the four walls of the PSAP, the dispatch center. And kind of going. Those are a couple of the bigger ones which account for. I know sometimes questions come up. Well, how much is in that? This fund and that fund, and I know sometimes we've talked about AIS. Well, there's 186,000 sitting in that AIS fund. I know the board recently agreed to obligate about 100,000 for the weed harvester up at Little Rock Lake. So just as you glance down through these, are there any of these that kind of catch your eye and you have a question about of what's that all about and why is it there? Lots of restricted, I call them buckets, restricted buckets. Departments get this too. You know, that I should mention too, is departments get this this monthly financial report too, so they can keep an eye on things. Let's move on, if we could, to the, this is the self-insurance fund. And this is definitely, I think, an area of concern and something for us to be watching. We started out the year with 1.2 million in our cash balances, and by the end of the year, we're down to just over 400,000. There was a substantial drawdown of our reserves in the self-insurance fund over 2021. And we are well below where we should be in terms of a fund balance coverage. The fiscal policy says we should maintain 6 months of planned expenditures. And you can see down below at the bottom, we are about 1.8 million underneath that target. So, that target's going to move, of course, as planned expenditures rise and fall. It's a 6 month average. But I think by any measure, we're well under where we should be with the cash reserve. That's really about 1 month of planned expenditures. And, in talking to Marsh McLennan, one of the big things that drew that fund balance down was, if you may recall the term the laser, there was a case that was so-called lasered out, which wasn't, our reinsurance coverage did not pay for that one. That came straight out of our fund balances. So that was about 700,000, which contributed to the drawdown of the reserves. So I think it tends to definitely support the need for that 12% increase for 22, and it's probably likely we'll need to see yet additional increases for 23 to continue to build that fund balance up a bit. And I think that's probably all I wanted to cover. Any questions about that monthly financial report? No? Okay. A little bit on redistricting. I'm gonna just zoom up here a little bit. So, as you heard from our treasurer's office a month or so ago, and then also validated by Scott, and Scott Zwick, our GS person, is with us via GoToMeeting, that as it stood initially, the redistrict actually wouldn't be required because all of our commissioner districts fell within the 10% plus or minus threshold. And you can see in Scott's illustration here, the new population counts by district. You need to be between 7,448 and 9,103. All 5 districts were. We contacted, so one of the things that really affected redistricting 2010 was changes in city precincts. So I was very curious to hear what are cities thinking about regarding any precinct changes. Well, we've contacted the city of Sauk Rapids, city of St. Cloud, and city of Sartell. And at this point, they do not foresee any changes in their precinct boundaries. And that definitely has significant implications for us. So I know the state legislative districts are supposed to be released today. That could have some effect. But what we're hearing from those 3 cities is they do not foresee any changes in their precinct boundaries. So that could make things quite straightforward for Benton County. One thing I did want to mention that is, even though your population counts don't require redistricting, you could still at your option redistrict. You still could. One point I want to just make though, and that is, and it's this number right here at the bottom. Change due to redistricting must be less than 414 individuals, or the person in that district must run for re-election. So if you're thinking and possibly, well, we could still maybe change some lines to try and balance things out a little bit more. Once that change, the cumulative change exceeds 414, and that's 5% of the let's see. I believe that is 5% of the average population, then that would trigger that commissioner district needing to run for re-election. So, it may come to pass that you may say, okay, we'll just leave things as they are. because there might not be any options that keep you under that 414 threshold. So we'll stay in close touch with the cities and see how things affect them, but as it stands today, they're telling us they don't foresee changes in their precincts. I was just noticing, for example, as you look here in St. Cloud, we don't have the precinct boundaries here, but even if they changed some of their precinct boundaries, all of those precincts are within District 5. So it really wouldn't matter where they move the lines. They're still on inside District 5.
Yep.
So that really shouldn't trigger an issue. With the city of St. Cloud, they have a ward system, so they would potentially need to redistrict just like we would. Whereas Sauk Rapids, all their council positions are at large, so they don't have wards, so they don't have the same redistricting requirement as the city of St. Cloud would. So just an update, we're again staying in close touch with the cities, and we'll let you know as soon as we hear anything might change. Because if somehow redistricting was required for us, we have a very short time frame to get that process complete. Okay, any questions, thoughts on redistricting?
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, last thing is a quick update on the Foley High School property. Commissioner Johnson and I attended the Foley Planning Commission meeting last night. They did approve the rezoning of the property from residential to business. They requested a few conditions. One of those was at some point the site plan include a sidewalk along the western boundary of that property, and also a 12-foot utility easement. Apparently, there's just city utilities running right there on the edge of the property, and they want to make sure that's protected with an easement. Those things seemed acceptable. The planning commission seemed pleased that that's going to be could be the future use of this property. That seemed to fit well with their vision and goals for the city. So that was a good reception. Anything you want to add on that?
That covers it.
Yeah.
It was very good.
So the next issue is the environmental work. So the Brown Intertech has generally completed the phase 1. They'll be presenting the phase 1 to you at your March 1st meeting. I have it in draft form already. And basically, just give you a preview is, I just got an email yesterday that they said they've gotten everything they're gonna get from MTCA. And bottom line is they still cannot rule out conclusively that there could be contaminated soils. They can't. So it does look most likely that if the board wants to proceed with this property, you may want to consider phase 2. A little bit of good news on that is initially they gave you a cost to do the phase 2 of about $22,000. Now that they've done the phase 1, they've been able to really fine tune that number, and it came down to 11. I am still going to obtain an estimate from another company as the board requested. So I sent the phase 1 over to a St. Cloud company and asked them to give us an estimate on a phase 2. So hopefully we'll have that for you on March 1st. But the soil scientists from Brown Intertech will present to you the phase 1 on March 1st. And I think that's it.
Oh, you got a lot more under your agenda here. Update on county assessor recruitment?
Yes, so yesterday we interviewed 3 finalists for the county assessor position. We're pleased that we have one, I think, quite viable candidate. It's probably not appropriate for me necessarily to name that person because we still need to do a background check and check references. But I believe the selection committee felt comfortable with that person and did not feel it was necessary to then use the services of an executive search firm to assist us. So we're optimistic that we have a good candidate, and hopefully we'll reach an agreement on salary and all those various things, and we'll have a new assessor quite soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Right. Benton County housing study?
That's
Next.
Amanda.
Amanda.
Let's see, do you need this?
I might use it.
Which one? You mean this?
This one,
Oh, yeah, okay, then you're
just
set.
in case they want them
You're all
out.
set.
Good morning, County
Good morning.
Commissioners.
Morning.
Good morning, Chair. In front of you this morning, you have a housing study from Maxfield Research and Consulting. One of our economic development goals at Benton Economic Partnership is to facilitate growth and development throughout the county and promoting economic development and development. And this is in front of you this morning is our comprehensive needs housing analysis from Maxfield Research. So this market study, we've kind of talked about it a little bit as one of our goals, is to determine the market potential for developing different types of housing in the county, owned, rented, and other types of housing products. And the actual study is taking a look at what our future supply, or what our current supply is and what our future demand will be throughout the county. This, again, is a comprehensive housing study, so it includes all the cities, all the townships, countywide, basically, and we're gonna take a look at that. Matt Mullins was on, I don't think he's on anymore, to answer any questions they have specifically related to the proposal. But I do wanna say that, a couple of different things. So the cost of the housing study is $34,000. We did meet with all of the cities. I presented this information to the townships. Some of the cities came aboard to contribute to the overall cost of the housing study. So I was able to knock that total number down about $7,500. So commitments from the cities totaled $7,500. So I'm looking for the county to approve the remaining balance, if the county board, of course, is interested in completing the housing study, at an estimated cost of $26,500. So I'm looking for, feedback from the commissioners, and if there's nothing further, we'd look for an authorization to move forward with the housing study. BP would facilitate and, organize and enter into the agreement with Maxfield to complete that housing need analysis, and we're asking Benton County to contribute to the remaining amount. So I'll open it up for questions. Of course, this is completely up to the county whether you want to move forward with this or not.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Johnson.
couple quick questions, Amanda. The dollars that are presented for the county, that include any administrative costs from BEP?
It does not.
Okay, so will there be additional costs coming for that?
I haven't calculated in that cost
Okay.
for administration, but I certainly could if that's something that you're interested.
Okay, and then also, was there any particular reasons, there's at least one city or two that stand out to me that are not on this list of why they did not want to participate?
I'll show you a little map, and maybe this will help clarify some of the concerns that one of the cities had. It was difficult to break out. Let's see if I don't know if this will work. Okay, so this is how our submarkets are currently broken out, and you could see, we did our best working with the cities to identify those individual submarkets. So each one of those submarkets are going to be individually studied. And so we got feedback from all of our city partners as to the target areas in each one of those submarkets. The issue comes in with Minden Township. And Minden Township, it was really difficult for us to break out the census tracts. They really wanted to see Minden Township, Sauk Rapids wanted to see Minden Township included in their submarket. And we weren't able to break out the individual township by census tract because of the way the census tracts are laid out in Minden Township. So it was really difficult for us to break that out and satisfy the city of Sauk Rapids to be included in that. I mean, obviously, we have Minden Township, Mayhew Lake Township, and Gilmanton Township, Maywood Township, all in one submarket area. And Sauk Rapids didn't really feel that the entire Minden Township was included in Sauk Rapids. And that was one of the concerns. The other concern that the city of Sauk Rapids had is they feel like they have a handle on the housing market for the city. And their main concern was the cost of the lots was contributing to the lack of development in the city limits. So those are the two concerns that they had. Therefore, they didn't want to pursue a housing study for their municipality. Sartell also, you don't see them on the list. Sartell has very limited amount of housing available in Benton County. That was kind of an obvious reason.
Sure.
But that was why. So, I guess, do you have any other thoughts or questions on?
Alls I know is the city of Sauk Rapids did their housing study in 2019, I believe it was, with St. Cloud.
Yeah, and.
So-
So they're pretty
They were-
current. They felt current.
They felt that they were, current enough right now.
But
Commissioner Pop.
the city of St. Cloud is also within Minden Township, and they didn't have a problem with it, right?
They didn't, and we did break it out. I mean, you could see kind of St. Cloud and the south side of 23, is kind of included, and they didn't have any issues with Minden Township. With how we broke it out with that study, so the St. Cloud HRA is moving forward with contributing to the study as well. So we've been working on this since last summer, working with all the cities and the townships and moving forward with a housing study. We do believe, as part of our organization, we believe that doing this housing study will promote development and economic development growth in our county. And so that's why I'm bringing it in front of you this morning.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I recommend that we spend the $26,500 for the housing study. I think it's well needed. Amanda has documented it for the last 6 months about going forward with this, so.
I'll second that.
Question yet?
Questions?
What was the amount that was left over from the study?
I'm sorry. So the total amount for the study was $34,000. And we have various cities contributing to the cost of the study. And so we have $26,500 left
Okay.
as the
Okay.
cost.
Could we identify a source of funds?
That was my next question to you, Monty. Where is this funding coming from?
I would direct it to what we call the county board contingency account. I think we budget 75,000 there annually. I know some of that's going towards the work on the zoning appeal in St. Cloud, but I think there should be sufficient resources to cover both.
Okay.
So county
So
board
we have-
contingency.
So we have a funding
Funding source.
for it.
We need that in the motion.
Do we need that in the motion? No, I
Please.
think we can.
Please, that would
Okay.
be
Is
ideal,
that what
yes.
you want that in the motion? So motion maker, you want to add that to your
I
motion?
want to add that to the motion that the funds will come out of the county contingency fund.
And I'm okay on that in a second.
And the second's okay with that? Okay, any further discussions? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Next would be COVID-19 update provided by Jacqueline.
Jack, hang on just a second, I'll give you the screen.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good
morning.
morning.
Let's see here. Okay.
All right. Can you see the full screen there?
Yes.
You bet, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll start this morning with a situation update for our county. The information that I'm sharing with you today is as of yesterday, February 14th. The at-home test kits are not included within these numbers. However, it's the best information we have. Well, it's likely still an undercount at this point in time. So as of yesterday, we had 226 active cases. This is down from the prior update. In total for our county, we've reached 13,618 total cases, 554 total hospitalizations, 95 total ICU cases, and 165 total deaths. We continue to update our data dashboard Monday through Friday with the information that we have available to us. Looking at our level of community transmission for the CDC, we are currently still at a level of high community transmission. We have a case rate of 809.51 per 100,000, The prior week, we were at 1,787.77 per 100,000. So this is a decrease from where we've been. We currently have a test positivity rate of 12.35%. The prior week, we were at 19.08%, so this is also a decrease from where we've been. For context overall, we'd like to see that case rate of 100,000. We'd like to see that below 10 new cases per 100,000 in the past 7 days. And the test positivity rate, we'd like to see that below 5% test positivity rate for the last 7 days. Here is a look at our youth COVID-19 case count per week. The white boxes indicate the current week in comparison to the same week the year prior. This information is through February 10th. I'd like to draw your eyes here to the right of the screen. This is where we've been in recent weeks. We continue to see similar case counts for those ages 0 to 4 years old and 5 to 11-year-olds. However, in those 12 to 17-year-olds, we do see a slight decrease in counts, or a continued decrease in counts for that age group in comparison to the recent weeks. And that is noted there in the yellow line. Here's a look at our adult COVID-19 case counts per week. The white box is also indicating the current week in comparison to the week the year prior through February 10th here. I'd like to draw your eyes there to the right of the screen. That's where we've been in recent weeks. We are seeing a decrease in all of our adult age groups in comparison to those recent weeks. Our partners at our local health system have reported that they are continuing to see hospitalizations stabilize and have also seen a decrease in the percent test positivity rate. It's currently at 16%, which is down 4.7% from the prior update. In addition, with our local St. Cloud Community Testing Center, that has also seen a decrease in the weekly percent test positivity rates as well. While we're seeing these things head in the downward direction, it's still just important to note that we're still seeing many people sick with COVID-19, and so the recommendations from the Minnesota Department of Health still remain. We still recommend vaccination for everyone who's 5 years and older, and also should receive those additional doses or booster doses when they're eligible. We still recommend wearing a mask, getting tested, staying home when sick, washing hands, and avoiding large crowds, and then also taking that extra care to avoid exposure if you or somebody that you live with has a medical condition that would put you at a higher risk of COVID-19, of severe illness from COVID-19. And then on the screen here, just some resources for the public for anyone who's looking for a vaccine or looking for a COVID-19 test. In summary for today, I would say that, we continue to monitor our COVID-19 situation to identify trends within our county, and we're seeing things head in the right direction. Remain cautiously hopeful as we're seeing things decline, and we'll just continue to monitor this in the weeks to come and ongoing. And that's all that I have prepared today. It's open for any questions you may have.
Jacqueline, I seen on your screen that we're going through the decline cycle and it's dropping fairly significant. Is that going to remain that way for another week or two until we plateau or hit the bottom?
Yeah, we're hoping that we're remaining cautiously hopeful. I can pull up a trend line here. So here's another look at that.
Okay.
So this is our daily case count over time. So we can look at this to identify trends as new cases are added to our dashboard. And so this is looking at a day. So here you can see we were up here almost reaching 190 cases. Can you see my mouse on the screen? I'm not sure if it shows it.
Yep, we can see that. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yep, and then you can see here where we're trailing down. So, we'll continue to watch this ongoing. We can't necessarily say with 100% certainty, but things are headed in the right direction.
What was the date of the peak?
The date of the peak, I'd have to pull up on our dashboard here to give you the exact date. So this is our Benton County Public Health Dashboard. And here, January 26, 2022.
So we would know.
Good. Good, it's going in the right direction.
Yep.
Any questions for Jacqueline?
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you for that information. Totally appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on. Discussion on face covering requirements for the county employees, set to expire February 22nd, 22.
So I'll put this on here for some discussion. It would expire a week from today, if there's no action of the board. So of course, the board could take action today, rescind earlier, extend, or just simply take no action and allow it to expire on the 22nd.
Is Johanna on the line?
I believe she is. Yep, I see Johanna there with us.
Do we have information, Johanna, of how many people are out with COVID right now through the county?
For county employees,
Yes.
as of yesterday, we had 4 COVID situations that were active. We had many return to work on Monday, yesterday.
Okay, so you're seeing an improvement there too then with our employees, right?
Okay, with that, Mr. Chair, I'm gonna move that we rescind the mask policy effective immediately.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any questions?
I'm sorry, what was the?
To rescind the mask policy effective immediately.
Okay.
Any discussion on that? Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Now we can take them all off. I can get rid of these shields that I'm keep looking around, right?
Yeah, oh no, we're gonna have a burn pile party.
No, we're gonna keep them. We're gonna keep them.
Yeah, okay.
Commissioner meeting updates. Commissioner Schlangen.
We had the Career Solutions meeting, and they basically were appreciating years of service. Their discovery days are, they're working with CDLs and healthcare. And they had a bunch of the clients that they had, they gave their testimonies of how things went with them going through the process and where they are at now. And everybody's just impressed with how Career Solutions is moving on. I was at the Central Minnesota Council on Aging, and they have the Older Americans Act and working with the care through Foley. And almost all of their services are increasing. They'll still take more volunteers. The advisory appointment for Benton County, Ruth Hunstinger and Spencer Berkeley are now on the board. RSVP, let's see. They're going to be working on improving they got a grant to improve the courtyard out at Whitney Center. And, they've had 85 new presenters, so they are continuing to grow also. They're working on caregiver training. Let's see, one funny thing. Jim brought us through a way to use our plastic bags. And what else did I have? Let's see, I think I have one more here. Minden Township. They're working on the broadband. They worked on their orderly annexation contract and permit fees. They renewed their fire the fire policy for the district. And they're working on their ditch proposals. And I think that was it.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, on February 7th, we had a Broadband Committee meeting. There continues to be discussions with the city of Foley on what we call the co-locations, the area where the fiber will come in and split off of. None of those things have been finalized yet. The city's in the process of trying to come up with their exact location and where their line will come in. We did talk about sending kind of and correct me if I'm wrong, Monty, but we're gonna do kind of a highlighted overview of the feasibility study to present to county officials. I think that's gonna happen at the Benton County Area Township meeting, where they have obviously access to the full 180-page report, but we were gonna try to pull out and highlight some things for them to be able to review that.
The executive summary will be.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna get that to Amanda.
okay.
She's got that, yeah.
Great. We also had some preliminary discussions, you know, as the ARPA rules have changed for townships, they're pretty much able to spend their money on what they'd like. So we did have some townships talk with us about, you know, they're not sure what they're gonna spend that money on. And so kind of a suggestion we threw around was maybe you could take 25% of your ARPA money and just kind of put it aside if you're not for sure that you've got areas to spend it on right now. And so we can have further discussions about potential broadband dollars spent in your township. So I think that'll be brought up also at the area township meeting coming up on the 17th. Extension committee meeting, we are back at virtual on that. Just was normal updates and reports from educators and from Ann Olson on that. District 4, Commissioner Kapinski's district did have an opening, but I understand now that's potentially filled with Cheryl Skapansky. The Tri-County Extension Committee meeting is coming up on February 28th, and all members of the Extension Committee from the counties are invited to attend, along with hopefully some new members from Sherburne County, so they can get in on our meeting there. And also, we just found out last week, one of our educators, Katie Drewitz, has put in her resignation letter. She's a horticulture advisor, and her last day will be March 5th of this year, and she's been with us about 3.5 years, I think, so. It's gonna be a loss. I'm a little bit nervous because her husband is also one of our educators. We'll see where that takes us. Roxanne covered most of our planning commission meeting last week. Just one highlight, we did have a supportive care application come through as a conditional use permit, and it's always kind of fun to be able to move ahead and approve those. It's a good opportunity for family members to take care of, you know, aging parents or whatever that case is. So that came before us and was overwhelmingly approved. And she did already go over all the amendments to Ordinance 43. And then, as Monty mentioned last night, we were at the city of Foley. I think that went very well. It was short and sweet, and they're excited about our opportunities coming up here, so we're looking forward to working with them too. That's all I had.
Good. Okay, so I was on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. We had applications for $436,000, and we only funded about $70,000 because we only have $276,000 in our fund available. That was an interesting meeting, the longest one I've ever been at, 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Yes, 2.5 hours. It was very interesting.
So you, the new appointments got their feet held to the fire then on that?
They did, yes. Yep, it was very interesting. Actually, it was very enjoyable. We did talk to Mark Ebnett and Chris Berg, Highway County, for the county about Amnesty Day 2 to kind of take care of the issues that we've had in the past and try to solve them with the haulers.
Okay.
Right away. So hopefully we get that addressed. So that'll be good. Career Solutions, Beth already talked about that. I'm chair of that board. That was just a highlight. They had 4 people there, giving a presentation of how they have helped them through the last couple of years, which was very good. I've seen Bob, he's not here. Bob was on that too, that meeting. And then the East Central Regional Juvenile Center finally had advisory board committee. I had to join in on late. I missed a lot of it, but as you get more years of a commissioner, you know that everybody serves on every committee and pretty much knew everybody there. Basically, at the end, they did the agreement and voting reviews, so Benton County has 2 votes for that, so that's kind of nice. Did the budget review. They had a surplus of $310,000 last year carrying over to this year, and there was discussion to put it into the capital fund or general fund, and we made the commitment to put it back into the capital fund so that we have a say of where it's going to go. So, and that's all I had.
Okay, first, I was unable to make the extension committee, so thanks to Scott for helping that. I was
I'm
got
sorry.
hung up.
Yeah.
And then I was on Micah, and there was a lot of updates on Micah, not a lot of, legislative just started, so we didn't hear much about that. It was kind of funny that they were predicting that there would be close to $9 billion surplus by the end of January, and what did you see yesterday? $9 billion. I think you're gonna see all kinds of wants out of this 9 billion from what they want. And kind of like the Micah counties should get their priorities, kind of in line what they see that they want, because they will lobby for us, and they have, our group has real good success of getting kind of what they want. So, I don't know what they're gonna do with $9 billion. I did have a conversation on Sunday with our state rep, and me and him probably don't see eye to eye on what we should do with it neither. So, and that was all that I had.
Okay, and then I could not make the APO meeting too because my Career Solutions, I didn't get out of there till 10 after 5. But Chris, did you say that they actually had to cancel that one, the 9th?
Yeah, so it wasn't just you, there must have been others that couldn't make it.
Yeah, because I know Commissioner Gopinski couldn't make it either.
Yeah, so they couldn't reach a quorum, so they couldn't take any action on those recommendations for funding, so. they'll
Okay,
just-
good.
Supposedly staff should be reaching out to all of you here shortly to reschedule that meeting.
Okay, great. Okay, anything under Commissioner concerns?
None.
Okay, set committee of the whole meetings.
I just have one new one. You are invited to the Highway 23 Coalition annual meeting. It's Friday, March 25th, and it starts at 11:30. And it's gonna be at the new Park Event Center in Waite Park. Senator Klobuchar has been invited as the main speaker. So again, that's Friday, March 25th, 11:30, and it includes lunch. Perhaps we could get indication of who might be interested in attending Highway 23 Coalition.
I will be there, Beth.
Take a note.
I'll plan on it.
Okay.
What date did you say that was again?
25th.
Friday, March 25th at 11:30 a.m.
I will not be able to attend at this time.
What do you think, Commissioner Pop?
Yes, I'll be able to attend.
Okay.
That's pretty unusual that we've had it in this part of, normally it's been at the Wilmer or the casino
That's a good sign.
down there.
Yep.
So that's a good sign that they at least thought about moving it up here.
So 3 of our 4, Beth, and then we'll contact Commissioner Kapinski to determine.
And I'm
his-
sorry, Monty, you said Waite Park?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's the Park Event Center, 500 Division Street in Waite Park.
And when do they have to know by? In case my schedule changes for that 25th?
Sorry, it does not.
It does. I think
me-
if you just show up,
Just,
Dale.
yeah, well, Beth, go ahead, throw me on there. I'll try to adjust my schedule for that day.
We're, it does say because we're members, it says, there's no cost for members.
Okay,
So, yeah.
okay.
Um,
That'll take care of that
all right,
then.
that is the only addition I have to the committee of the whole calendar.
Wow.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve that addition to the cow.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned, 10:31.
Now, ditch authority, right?
We'll take a
One-
break.
The cheering, that's gonna be moved, right?
We're gonna talk
So-
about that.
Okay,
Let's
that's
put
next,
the
okay.
mics on.
Yet to come.